Hi, everybody. It's me, Linda Burhans, day 2 of the Connecting Caregivers Conference. As I said, a little joyfully challenged yesterday, but we're good to go today. So our first speaker we have here is my friend, Dr. Cate McCarty. And Kate is a gerontologist and dementia coach whose personal and clinical experience includes over 40 years of creating quality of life for individuals with dementia. 40 years, because she started when she was 5. But she'll be focusing today on resilience and caregivers. Every single time I listen to her, I learn something new. Every single time I listen to her, I get a little giggle, which I think that is like the most important thing in caregiving. So take it away, Dr. Kate.
Thank you, Linda. Boy, it was a little bit like Groundhog Day there for a minute, which is perfect because isn't that what waking up with dementia is like? A lot. Groundhog Day, same thing, different day. And as a now active care partner, it's like, wow. So I'm delighted that Becky from Assisting Hands in St. Pete area asked me to join. I know, Linda, you were asking me too. I appreciate you both. And I have had 40 years of training, knowledge gaining, and a whole lot of advice. And now I get to live it. And it's, oh my, this is much harder than I ever realized when I was cavalierly sending out what the research says and my experience was. And it's like, it's so different. I think of the old adage, the plumber and his pipes. Oh yeah.
You know, I tell you, it's very funny. Every time I'm out of the caregiving experience for a little while, somebody brings me back in just to remind me.
I know, exactly. It's like, oh, there it is. That's what my purpose is. Dang it. I didn't learn that yet. Right? So it's a constant evolution. And resilience is a term that started showing up in the research probably as recently as 5 years ago. And it was an interesting term because in the beginning of, if you flash back to the early 2000s, research was all about burden, overload, strain, vigilance. Now, those things are all still there. There's no doubt. But we have started to see money and resource, which is a big deal in academia, switch to things like resilience, capability, well-being, quality of life. Hey. And that's my sweet spot, right? So but I'll be honest, even though I have all this degree work here, I looked up resilience. What is that? What is resilience? Well, it's the ability, it's the can do. It's the I can do it. And I'm going to ask you all, anybody listening, to bear with me as I pull up a whiteboard here. And I wanted to ask you to consider all of the terms that come to mind. And you like me may have a Diet Coke or a cup of coffee, which will maybe make your answer different. It will for me. But what kind of terms come to mind when you're facing the new day with a dementia care partner? And I'm going to say, for me, I will be honest, I'm tired. Relieved because we have unloaded one of our mortgages, God willing, and the creek don't rise. The money's in the mail, right? So that's wonderful. Curious because what's the next project? Because my fella, Mike, my husband, has lots of projects and they usually involve lots of money. So how do I keep a lid on that? And he's on another floor, which I am very grateful for because we don't have shadowing. Shadowing is something that we see a lot of in dementia. Yeah. We recently did a support group on things that go bump in the night. I think in themes because I was an activities director for many years, still really am. And so I think of, saints and souls and all that good stuff about Halloween. And, one of the beautiful things about being with other people who are in the same boat is that you're all in different spots. And Linda, you have shared that so beautifully, Becky as well, where you are able to see it from a different perspective. And that's the beauty of groups. That's why your groups are successful. Our groups are successful because it takes a village. It takes more than one perspective. There's a lot of, and if I were to put that on my board, there's a lot of aloneness that happens in this journey. And even our doctors aren't getting trained very well on how to do this. We know what we can't do. We know what doesn't work, but let's look at what does work. So, and I'm just going to briefly pull this up here because the title was From Survive to Thrive. So moving forward, how do we get out of just survive? Because as tacky as it sounds, my number one goal is to outlive this.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the trajectory, and if you're not grasping that this is progressive neurodegeneration, then that sounds like I'm a rude, Black Widow. Not yet, but yeah, planning on it. But that's not the case. But I do want to survive. But in order to do it with the most grace, talk about grace, and I need to do more than survive. I need to thrive. And one of the things that I found most telling in my journey with looking at the research is I wanted to ask everybody to take a moment and right now, maybe before the second sip of coffee, put yourself a scale of 1 to 5 on how capable you feel at this. How capable are you at caregiving? And it doesn't matter if it's dementia caregiving. Let's face it, this was not in our lifetime goals. When we were writing down in our little adolescent diary what our dreams were, they did not include any of these things. So right today, are you a 1, which is I'm least capable, I'm incapable at this moment in time. You may be curled up in bed and only listening because you don't want to sit up to look at the darn picture. Or are you at a 5 where I've got this? That's a hard place to be. I find even in the best of days, that's slipping quickly. By rating this a little bit, I think it'll help. And then we'll readdress this in a few minutes. But as I said, the research was all about the negatives, the guilt, the burden, overwhelmedness. And we are moving more towards looking forward. So I wanted to address when we look at caregiving, when we look at dementia behaviors, in particular dementia, we could probably extrapolate and say getting older does mean getting crankier. Right? So if you're in a caregiving role, there's probably crankiness. But we always call them, they're the 4 A's, and it's agitation, anxiety, aggression, and I always forget apathy. And if you know Linda and I, that's not one we do well with because we want response. We're the animated people, and the apathetic person is not animated. This is your little recliner sitter who doesn't give you any response, has flat affect. And that happens a lot with vascular dementia, but it happens with other things, congestive heart failure, etc. So those are our behaviors that we see. And what we, as trainers and as experts, often do is we look at those for our care partner. I'm using the word care partner because ideally in a perfect world, we're doing this. And I'll be honest, this world in my life is rarely here. It might be where I'm dragging him. It might be where we're doing this, but this is hard. This is interdependence. Most of us didn't even have that before we got into a caregiving role. So so care partnering. How are those behaviors, agitation, anxiety, aggression, and apathy? What do they look like for us as care partners or caregiver? We're the ones, right? We're the primary one. So I wanted to take a look at that as a care partner. What are the triggers for me? What triggers my apathy where I just don't really give a, you know what? I just can't. I just can't. What triggers me to be aggressive? And sadly, yes, there are times when I am spitting mad and directly at Mike. And that's, certainly not a high point. That's when my capability level is at a 1 or 0. But there are trigger points. And I think it's important when we look at moving to thrive is to try to look at our triggers. And that's what we do when we look at our care partner and behaviors. I say, okay, is it an unmet need? And I can't see you, but everybody who is on this call who has an unmet need, which pretty much is probably all of us, you can raise your hand and say amen. But when we look at unmet needs for a person with dementia, we're looking at thirst. That's important. They can't express it. Now, we as care partners, we get too busy. Oh my goodness, I might have to get up and walk upstairs to get a drink of water. That's ridiculous. And yes, I'm trying to save the planet. So I would try to resist using the bottled water that's on the same level. Crazy thinking, but definitely part of my day. Am I hungry? Am I tired? And that's part of this morning. I had the booster shot 2 days ago and I didn't slow down. Not that I needed to necessarily, but my eyes are grainy and I'm feeling tired. And are we well rested? So tired and rested are, what unmet need? We all have them. We have them in spades, probably, depending on where you are and how much help you're gaining along the way. When we look at the caregiving stress, we see that when you compare caregiving with Alzheimer's to caregiving of other types of like cancer, you see that the dementia caregiver has more interrupted sleep, more depression, more feelings of hopelessness. Perhaps we have not proven this, but this is how long this journey is. Perhaps that is it. Chronic stress and vigilance. When I think of the term vigilance, and blessed with a new grandbaby, and I had to chuckle to myself when my daughter's like, he's sleeping 3 hours. When will there be more? When will he sleep through the night? And I just had to giggle to myself. I know. Oh, 3 hours is such a blessing. Hang on to that, friend. But that's vigilance that you're on. And we can experience that here at our stage in life with caregiving. There's no doubt about it. We know that chronic stress increases our vulnerability to disease. We're all immune compromised at this point because we're not taking optimal care of ourselves. So when we look at that, we have to look at what our unmet need is. And often, for me at least, time alone, just time to be, without any expectation. That's a trick. I'm a working caregiver. Many of you are. I wouldn't give it up for the world. I love what I do, but it does add extra. And I've tried to figure out how to balance that so that I'm not just in that survive mode. So this is kind of a turning point. If I were a pastor, this would be the come to Jesus moment, perhaps. But we have to ask ourselves, who has the most ability to change? If we're in this partnership, depending on, in my case, I specialize in people with Alzheimer's and related dementias. Who has the biggest ability to make a change? And as you know, over time, there's really very little change that you can change behavior. There's very little you can do about that, as in your loved one can change. But we have the power to change all around it. And it all goes back to us, which is pretty frightening sometimes. I call my support groups maximizing energy. It's all about me. And I call my outreach for activities memory engagement. It's all goes down to me. It's all me. which can be really frightening. And please take another sip of coffee so you don't, decide not to stick with us today, because that can feel like a heavy load. How do we get past the heavy load? Well, some of it's self-care. And honestly, as a caregiver, when people tell me, people who aren't at all living my life, who have no idea what's happening, say, I hope you're taking care of yourself. I want to smack them sometimes, I'll be honest. Because, I'm getting up, I'm eating 3 meals, and I go to bed. I don't know what else you want from me, but please, I have had enough. Much easier from people who love me and who are offering something in return. Um, um, but when we look at sustaining ourselves, this is one of my favorite studies, and it's probably not favorite by academics because it was qualitative, but the J.M. Bull is the author of the study, and it's how to sustain yourself. And it's 3 items: education, you're here, so you've got check mark. Having some spirituality. That doesn't mean, it could mean you're walking in the woods behind me. This is one of my favorite paths in Mount Airy, Maryland. It's Linda's beautiful pictures. It can be snapshots. It doesn't mean you have to go on a retreat every month, because let's face it, we can't. But it means that we can retreat for a little bit. And then the third item in sustaining self in this study is asking for help. And wow, that's a tall order. Mike and I just got back from Florida. It was one of our rocket ship trips because he loves to do his Tesla 20-hour drive, which is insane. And I realize that. So don't coach me on it. But we did it. And we did it in order to downsize our mortgage payment. One of the most healing things that happened, and I usually don't get to see all the people I love because, again, it's a rocket ship trip always. Hopefully that'll change now that I don't have a thing to go tend to. I can come and be a vacationer. But one of the most healing things was when I was able to say, I just don't have the bandwidth to do this. And 2 of my favorite widows brought a breakfast. And it was so loving. And I never would have asked that. I couldn't ask that before, but I was so deficit. I was so, barely surviving that I was able to reach the hand up out of the mud and say, can we do something different? I can't meet you for breakfast. And they brought it. Same thing happened again with my brother who brought a meal. And, geez, we're the givers. But it was so, and I know Linda speaks of this all the time. It was so healing and so supportive to have someone else take care of the situation.
Yeah.
Now, and that's big stuff. I'm going to skip a little bit because I wanted to talk about role playing. And also, I'm going to do a role play and I talk about this idea of shame. And Brene Brown is really good at talking about this. One of the things that caregiving does is it gives us this amazing telescope where we can see all the things that we have not addressed in our past. All the character traits that may not be optimal, right? And we get to have them focused on us. This happens, and of course, shame is a big thing. And I try to be very sensitive as a coach, not to ever give the sense that there's a should. We try not to should on people, but family and morality are very big. So I want to encourage you in this idea of getting to thrive, to learn to say no, because no is a complete sentence. My scenario is my sister, who always wants me to reach out to some far distant cousin because I don't know why. And I have been able to say effectively, and she has quit asking, no, I have enough on my plate. I don't need any more connections. That's a simple scenario, but with what we are carrying, we don't need to add more. And some of us, probably not everyone here, but some of us are very much the carer, and we're very quick to open our arms and take it all in. And that's sometimes driven by shame. So I definitely wanted to put that in the mix. And then also one of my favorite messages that I received years ago from Al-Anon back in the day is no is a complete sentence. So if, for instance, I say, if Mike had a daughter and I said to her, I'm going to go ahead and hire assisting hands to come in a couple hours a week so I get a break, so I can do some of my self-care things. And the daughter says, oh no, I don't know that I trust those people. I think you should stay. I don't think that's right. Then I need to be able to say, you're welcome to check in on him, or you're welcome to come a couple hours a week and take time with him. But this is what we both need. And then the next obstacle comes up. This is again right out of my old Al-Anon training. But what if da 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 da? You're welcome to do it yourself and come in and do these hours yourself, or you can check on them. So repeating, almost scripting your answer. Why would this be important for moving from survival to thrive? A couple things. That whole shame and guilt spiral, nothing good comes out of that in my experience. And you're being very clear. It's a boundary. It's important. So many times through all of the years of coaching and being in admissions, and family causes so much steam. And then when it's all said and done, it's the primary caregiver who regrets not doing something that they needed to do. They knew they needed to do, but they kind of let the family take over. And of course, there's power of attorney and all that other stuff, but I'm just talking about on the level. It's important in order to thrive, that I am the advocate for both of us. That's a tough gig. That takes sleep. It takes more than just 3 meals. It takes good healthy food. It takes my doctor's appointments being as critical as Mike's, which is a big learning curve for me. So I think that's an important part of the thriving. One of the things I wanted to get to is the idea of how we cope. Beautiful study came out on 2 kinds of coping: approach coping and avoidant coping. And they're a lot like they say. So let me give you the visual. Approach is, yes, honey, what can I do? What do you want? What are you saying? Can you repeat that? Avoidant is, okay, I don't know. And I'm good at this one. I'm really good at this one. So that's the visual. But if we look at the actual definition, approach coping is behaviors that attempt to reduce stress by alleviating the problem directly. I'm very much the indirect. I've been well trained by a very dysfunctional family to be indirect and passive. So, and I love them all, but yes, that is definitely where some of this came from. So avoiding. The approach coping is opening up to it. So if we were to look at the outcome of the study, we see that the approach coping, when they looked at behaviors, the person with dementia's behaviors, their depression, they saw that the approach coping actually lowered the behaviors and lowered the depression. So it mediated. It was like the scale. So, which again goes back to needing to thrive, because if I'm in survival mode, I am definitely hiding my head, the ostrich, right? I'm doing that. Where the avoidant, the hiding the head, increase the caregiver burden, because it's a lot of trouble to run. Right? It's a lot of work to hide. Denial time, right? Denial takes a lot of energy, a lot of lying to myself.
You have to really work. You have to really work at it.
You do. It's a lot of work, man. But it takes time to embrace and look at and try to to honestly be open to a solution. So the avoidant coping increased the burden, increase the anxiety for both care partners, and increase depression. And that makes sense because honestly, if your cognitive processing is low, but all you see is this and somebody going out the door, you're not feeling a lot of love. So of course you're feeling depressed. Everything's leaving you. One of the things we run into a lot in coaching with family members is that, why is he being mean to me? And one of the things that I can say quite honestly, if you are the one that your loved one targets and gives the hardest time to, it's because they love you that much. They love you so much that they know they can throw all the crap in the world at you and you're still going to be there. So when we know we're going to receive all the crap in the world, damn it, pardon my cussing, but yes, it's an honor, right? Because he knows I'm number 4 and Mike says, you're the best mate. You're the last mate and you're the best mate, because he knows I'm not going to run.
Right.
You would look really bad for the business.
Right.
So when we look at resilience, the ability to can do, we see group-based activities are showing up very highly as helping to modify negative behaviors, probably for both of us, right? I mean, we've had a double whammy. Here we are, caregivers, and then there's a pandemic. There's a so what group? Right? So
Yeah.
I get as much out of my virtual groups as my people do, because they are my friends, which I'm going to work on. I promise to work on. But yes, we need that. And we both need that. We also know that tailored activities help lessen or eliminate negative behaviors. So tailoring them to the individual. This, you can't just drag everybody into bingo and expect success. Some of us don't, some of us never like bingo, right? So looking back, and this really goes to when we're looking at dementia caregiving, one of my favorite concepts that's hard for people to get is that we are seeing progressive neurodegeneration. So we have stage 1, which is we're all thinking alike. We have stage 7, which is the end stage, right? But what's happening is we're going from a normal 60-year-old thinking process to a normal 40-year-old thinking process. And then along about when everybody starts noticing that things aren't right, we're basically thinking like a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, right? I mean, and that's around stage 4 and 5. And then when we really need help is when we have a child, we have a small child. We don't treat them like children, but this is not the person you go to when there's a crisis over the RV sale. I can attest to that, because they can't vote anymore. They can't process, and they say that, I don't know. This is the person, this is the well you went to with all the expertise. And now I don't know. And because of survival techniques, more Thrive, knowing how important this was, I stepped in, and then we have success. A lot of work. I'm not going to lie. It is a lot of work. So what we see is that the tailoring to every instance, it's not just activities, but even though as your husband, your wife, your dad, your mom may have been really good at this, you're going to have to take it down. Not so much that you take all the rights away. And that's the trick, right? I mean, my fatal flaw this past week was doing a conference call. I had handled it, and I pushed speakerphone, and that's where all the energy got lost. So I'm living and learning. And a positive thing too is that my care partner, Mike, has thanked me profusely for stepping up and taking over after that speakerphone, cleaning it up. And that's a lot of work, right? So I think it's important that we write our script out when it's a troubling incident, that we look at no as a complete sentence. And I wanted to go back to tailoring. It's a weird concept. I don't think we have any tailors anymore. But if we were to have tailors to fit the information to the person. This works with family members. Culturally tailored messaging. So, for instance, let's imagine that I've decided it's time for both my sake and Mike's, for his happiness, for his group-based activities, for the tailoring, blah, 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 that I'm going to put him into a memory care community. And if I were to share that with my dear brother, the one who brought me food, love him to death, he would say, oh, so you're putting him in a nursing home. That's where the cultural tailoring comes in. Because you see, if you've never been in an assisted living, if your experience has only been visiting grandma in Georgia in 1960, and you think that's all that is, and when I say memory care, you've just renamed it, that you've got to work with that. This is not lying, but it is tailoring the message. So I found a really nice place that Mike will be very happy. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm not asking for permission, and I'm not giving him trigger words. Now, that's a lot of work, I realize. But if you have someone in your life that has a really strong presence, a strong vote, think about that. Think about the tailored messaging and how that may help you. If somebody had home health and all they remember is the person got robbed and it was a scam, well, you don't necessarily put it out there the same way, or you don't put it out there at all. So tailoring the message, I think, is helpful in this idea of thriving. One of the things too that comes up very, very strongly, and it continues to come up, I think 3 or 4 studies a month I'm getting sent on exercise. Don't you love that word? Sounds so not fun. But it's as simple as walking the path behind me. We started doing this about a year ago, going out, and really only on Saturdays because it was our free time, and taking a hike. And we've now consistently gained on health. And so what we've done is, and this was certainly not my plan, I wish I could take credit for it, but Mike was pretty driven. I got him a Fitbit. I tailored the activity, right? I got him a Fitbit, and the man is like Mr. Numbers on the spectrum, really very number focused. And so any meal does not get eaten until it's put into the tracker. And then this Fitbit, he's lost 22 pounds based on his Fitbit that he got last Christmas. Without a lot of work, all numbers, tailoring it to him, right? Which, I'll be honest, I am not a numbers person. It was a bit of a trigger, and I had to look at the bigger picture, which the only way I can look at the bigger picture is to pull away. I remember one of my favorite, I don't know who said it, but they said sometimes you have to climb a tree to see the forest. And being able to climb a tree every day, we see this a lot in mindfulness. There's a lot of mindfulness information out there for caregivers. Learning to be present, and sometimes that's just present with yourself. It was really helpful for me to prepare for this today, because I had gotten away from, I used to have a routine with stretching and using Insight Timer. It's free. It has an amazing eclectic mix of people. I mean, I can listen to gongs or all kinds of things, binaural beats, which is very positive, and we're finding people will lower their anxiety level with binaural beats. There's all kinds of things that I never knew existed on Insight Timer. There's Headspace. There's a bunch of them out there right now. And I was listening to that. So somehow I got away from that, and I kind of just did the stretches. Well, what we have is a study that shows that 20 to 30 minutes of just meditation, whatever your culture is, whether that's Christian prayer, Hindu chants, Buddhist reflection, doesn't matter. It made a huge difference in this thriving, because it was from the Insight Timer, and I, of course, forgot and decided to cut it out, that I was able to get past that Mike was going to stop in the middle of the kitchen and ask me about everything in every pot as he put it into his Fitbit, because that could drive a woman insane. I'm very possessive about my kitchen. I realized this too late. But I definitely found that my time of filling my heart, soul, whatever you want to say, helped me be okay with and actually I will leave out the scan code for him, just so I can circumvent the questions about what's in that meal. But look at the success. It's a little frightening because I'm very competitive and I did not have that success. But that a tailored approach can help with moving to a survival mode. When we look at minimalism, one of the things that we see a lot in the Alzheimer's research, probably in the last 15 years, is the Montessori method. And, sometimes we glaze over because what does that mean? And are we treating them like children? The important, I think, thing to take home is simplifying. Who is it? Linda Marie Conde, is that her name? Where she says, if it doesn't give you joy, get rid of it. That lady. Yeah. Yes. And honestly, I look across at my bookshelf and I technically have all my cognitive abilities and it is a mess. There's no reason that bookshelf looks like that. I need to go through there and do something, organize, perhaps give away. I have journals that are only half written in. What's that about? Maybe I could cut out the pages and staple them. Lots of stuff. And now that I'm in the Northeast, there's a lot of seasonal shift, and I've noticed that. But simplifying, because if it's hard for Mike to carry in his brain, it's hard for me too. When we look at the best dementia special care design, it's simple, it's small. And I'm not talking tiny house. Mike loves watching the tiny house show, and they just did one with 6 people. I'm like, what the heck? I would kill 3 of them at least. And that kitchen, oh my gosh.
Well, Kate, they say that too much clutter and stuff is visual noise.
Exactly.
And I notice when I go into different caregiver homes, the ones with the least stuff are the most calm.
Isn't that the case? That is, yeah. And I feel that way. I mean, for me, it's like restaurants. I love my rainbow trout at Cracker Barrel, but I would love to have blinders on. It's just too much environmental stimulation.
Yeah.
That's very present in dementia research. You want just right. It's like Goldilocks. You want to just right. We want some stimulation, but not so much. I mean, even just the table. I've got to move the stupid tic-tac game and all the crap on the table. And it's kind of a little better with the pandemic because we're germ phobic, but yeah. Yes, less is more. Years ago, one of my favorite cookbooks, it was a Mennonite cookbook. That was the name of it. Less is more. And that is true for all of us. I mean, so much of what we talk about in the 12 steps, what we talk about in caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's, it applies to all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, let's simplify it. So my question to you listeners is, what would your life look like if your mind had less things to process? And I have found, I just said no to the sister with a wedding, an outdoor wedding. It was the second one. What the heck is that about? You got married last year. Anyway, I said, we're doing it again. Why? I already sent a gift. Anyway, those are the noises. Those are the things that I used to do that I can't. In order to thrive, I can't do all that. But my new slogan is, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now. Straight Al-Anon. Of course, I don't really even know what bandwidth is, by the way, but that's okay.
I think they get the message.
Yes, exactly. I don't have the bandwidth. And it goes back to no is a complete sentence. Yes, an Insight Timer. I have so many tracks that I like. I can't even tell you. I love, oh dear. I love Katie Kremitzos, who's actually a Tampa Bay person. I love Sarah Blondin, but she talks. Sometimes I don't want to talk. Yeah. I absolutely love PAZ, pause. I don't even know what we're chanting to, but It helps
Like
my,
it.
yes. I can't do anything with water because I always have to go to the restroom.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, so, but it makes a difference. So, and what I have found, I have to have non-negotiables. That's one of the things you hear about in corporate world. My non-negotiables now. I will do Insight Timer today. I'm not pitching for them. They don't pay us anything for this. I will do that. In order to walk, I will do my stretches because they very much are pivotal to my arthritic bones. And I will do my exercise. And you see my multitasking. I'm going to stretch and do Insight Timer together, right? And then I'm going to do my exercise while I watch Grey's Anatomy because that's my latest addiction. It's my time away. I think I probably should have been a MD, but those are non-negotiables. Those are things that I know are key to thriving. And I mean, I just went through 2 weeks with no stretching. I can make it. I won't get out of this chair very smoothly, but I can make it. But why would I just survive when I could thrive?
Yeah.
And when I'm thriving, it just spills over to Mike. He says to me, "Oh, it's so good to see you happy." And I instantly think, "Am I happy? What is that?" Right? But it's true. And so often the thing that you think is going to devastate them doesn't because of how you approached it. That was so evident in this last week with the RV. It's just like, other than the weather, we pulled in and it was 40 degrees. We left Tampa and it was 80. So that's a big hurdle, right? But
Yeah.
he didn't balk too much. So that was good because I'm the one that took him off the boat and took him away from the tropics and all these things I've taken away. I'm that person. I am the last mate and the best mate. Right?
Kate,
Yeah.
somebody sent in a question, emailed this to me the other day to ask you.
Yes.
And I'm sure you hear this all the time. Is Alzheimer's hereditary?
Often, yes. A lot more. For a while, we went off of that and said, "Oh no, only if it's early stage." I mean, only if it happened before 60. We're seeing it much more hereditary now.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish we'd get further along. It's very frustrating how little we really know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
All right,
heard
I
from.
just wanted to make sure we answered that question.
Yes. Any other ones that are coming up?
Yeah. Somebody says they like DG pill app for meditation.
Oh, nice. That's great. I have to take that down. I'm writing it myself, guys, but anybody else who's listening, there's a variety and some will hit you better than others.
And then one says, what is the name of the Insight Timer track that Kate likes?
Yeah, I was saying Paz. I like her. I like Katie Kremitzos. I like
Okay.
Sarah Blondin. Sarah Blondin really speaks to me. There are so many. I tend to, and this is where tailoring comes in. I tend to only listen to women. The men annoy the crap out of me.
Fine.
All right. That's probably that's probably some need I have in the future for therapy. But yeah, I'm like, I try, but yeah, it's like, no, they don't. So the women do speak to me. And I'm always been an eclectic thinker. I'm an eclectic spiritually. I've been, in so many churches and baptized so many ways because of a weird family life that I'm pretty open. So I do find that it's good sometimes for my mind not to have words going through. And that's where the chanting, I never understood that. I had a friend years ago that always did chanting, and I thought that is so weird. But I don't chant, but I listen to them.
Yeah.
And
Well,
appreciate.
after the first of the year, I'm coming out with some caregiver meditations. I'm just doing the music now. That's going to be specifically for caregivers. So
Oh, that's beautiful.
tune in.
Oh, that's great. There's somebody on Insight Timer. I listened to her. It wasn't very good. So you'll have to check her out because
Okay.
that for sure, Linda. Right? That's our competitive nature. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at simplifying, 3 questions to ask yourself: what do you care about? What makes your life meaningful? And who are you connected to? This caregiving journey does make you're really looking to find your tribe. And it's not the people that you thought it would be. Absolutely. And you all know that. You've all experienced where people pull away, they don't understand. I have a person that I totally like was in my inner circle, and she literally thought that Mike was flirting with her, or thought that he was flirting with her. Yes. But she thought I was offended by that, and I'm not. But it was surprising to me. So, that circle just gets tighter.
Yeah.
So you like I love that thing, find your tribe, because it's a different tribe probably than it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we live long enough, we definitely see a lot of people that are dealing with what we're dealing with. So yeah. So that idea of paring down to give your brain a break, you only have so much bandwidth. What are you going to spend it on?
Yeah.
And we do see the stress markers when you look at longevity,
Hey, those 3 questions you just said, somebody wants to write them down. Can you repeat them, please?
Yes. What do you care about? What makes your life meaningful? And who are you connected to?
Thank you. I think those are 3 very important questions. I think it just gives people something to think about.
Right. And it shifts. Like I said, I mean, you find that sometimes it's the people in your support group.
Yeah.
They're walking the same journey.
Right.
And of course, like I said, the pandemic has made everything kind of wonky, but I need to reach back out to some people. And surprisingly, social media gives you a real taste of where folks are landing.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the
I
things with
think that part of not knowing you're alone is very important.
oh yes, when it's all about me, memory engagement has 7 components in it for what I do, and we have purposeful. Well, just caregiving gives you a good sense of purpose, but sometimes people need a little more. And for me, that might be filling boxes for a shelter this season that I do with Mike, right? Intergenerational, creative, cognitive, physical, musical, spiritual. And I don't list those for y'all to take notes, but those are what have been determined to be the components to give a good quality of life. So if you were to look at those, what do you have of those components in your life? For me, I'm living right near my favorite and until recently only granddaughter. That's my intergenerational, right? That's great. Creative to do with people in memory cafe, so that's good. Sometimes a little bit of writing. Cognitive, that's stuff like this. I had to put this together, right? Physical, that's one of the non-negotiables because of my hereditary history. Musical, well, I try to listen, and lately I've gotten into coffee jazz. I never thought I'd be a jazz girl, but I love the randomness of the situation. So I use that while I'm putting stuff together because I'm doing a little teaching too for a remote college. And spiritual is Insight Timer. It's tuning into my favorite church every week, sometime during the week, not like in church hours, because that like kind of has a thing for me, but just making sure that I have some sort of balance.
Yeah.
And that's where survive and thrive. I mean, when you look at, I just got a new turtle, long story, but what it takes to survive. And they're basically pretty good survival critters. They eat when they find food, right? But there's a tipping point for everything. And that goes for us. There's a tipping point. So I'm going to open it up for any more questions right now, because I think we're getting close.
Yes.
And I want to thank again, Linda, thank you. If you are on this journey with us, which you probably are, sample lots of different options, sample memory cafes, sample support groups, virtual, live.
Yeah.
Find the tribe that works for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And for everyone that's listening today, somebody just said, will there be recordings available for viewing later? Because I found out even with some of yesterday's sessions, people saying, oh goodness, my sister needs to hear that. Or, oh goodness, I need to hear that one over again. This will be all available after the conference. It's going to take me a little while because I'm going to do each one individually instead of the whole conference. And that will be available to anyone that registered. So I
Beautiful.
just want to let you guys know that, and it just may take me like a week or so, whatever.
That's beautiful. I wanted to ask you all to take the time to look at your capability score again. You
Yeah,
have one is I feel totally incapable, and I'm not going to take credit. It might have been your Diet Coke or your coffee that made the difference here. Or 5 is I feel totally resilient. I can do it.
yeah,
I can do this. And I want you to take note on that. And then your self-care is directly related to that score. So if your score is low today, what can you add in? Is it a walk? Is it,
yeah.
finding an insight timer? Is it whatever that is? Is it music?
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Linda. And I'm so excited to see the Bernsteins. Yay! There's
Yes,
some creative fun right there with cognitive.
yes, yes. Thanks so much for being with us, Kate. I totally appreciate you. Can you tell our listeners your website again, please?
Yes, it's katemccarty.com. Let me see. I'm going to put it in the chat box. And I think I've got that. Hang on. Let me get to, I know how to do this. Let me pull up my screen here. There
You
you
were
go.
getting so technical. It's funny.
Oh, that was because I started so long ago, right? This is a
There we
beautiful,
go.
this is Ponce, Puerto Rico,
Nice.
on top of the castle. And there's my website, phone number, and email.
And I'll have it all in the description, but just if anybody wants to write it down right now, that's great. All righty. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll chat
Hey, give
soon.
yourself a hug. I always end with a hug. I can't help it. It's a romper room thing.
Oh, good. I so appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thanks.
How do I get out here?
And Dr. Kate was sponsored today by Assisting Hands. So now we're going to have a little Assisting Hands commercial.
I remember making cardboard forts in the backyard with you kids. And remember that time you and your brother burnt the cookies so bad our house smelled like smoke for a week. Your mother played music every Sunday morning on my mother's old piano. I still hear it. I know I'm not getting any younger, but I'm not ready to leave this house.
Dad,
It's my home.
Dad, you don't have to.
Caring for your loved ones comes naturally to us. We have provided compassionate and dependable care to seniors and those with disabilities. Our caregivers exceed state training requirements. At Assisting Hands, we understand that remaining at home is what will provide the best quality of life for your loved one and the most peace of mind for you.
My home.
Helping you remain happy and at home.